Very good evening to all of you guys. So today is the first GVO Tech Talk for 2021, and today I'm going to talk about TestCafe automation tool. So this TestCafe is used to automate end-to-end web applications. And let's continue with the presentation. So this is the today's presentation outline, and I'm going to talk about TestCafe in this bullet points. So the first one is to get an introduction to the TestCafe automation tool, and then the history of this TestCafe automation tool and the reasons that why we need to consider to use this tool, and also a brief comparison between the existing frameworks that we use to automate applications like Selenium and Cypress with TestCafe, and also the TestCafe features that I'm going to talk about in this presentation as well, and then a deep dive into TestCafe and a small demonstration that how we can use this tool for our test scripting and for our future projects, and then advantages and disadvantages of this TestCafe tool. So let's deep dive. And this slide talk about the basic introduction to TestCafe. So as you can see, this TestCafe automation tool is an open source end-to-end testing framework. So the end-to-end testing means a methodology that tests whether the flow of an application is performing as expected from start to finish. So to give you an example, in our projects, we use to log into application and do some step-by-step methods in the script, and then we use to log out. So with this full test script, it's a end-to-end testing script. So that's what means by this end-to-end testing. And also TestCafe is written in JavaScript. Then we can use JavaScript and TypeScript to script using TestCafe, and then it's running partially in the browser and partially in Node.js environment. So this tool is basically made up with Node.js. So, and we can use this TestCafe as Cypress. So there are many similarities and also many dissimilarities as well. So the entire application is this automation tool can use to automate any application that support a web interface. So let's talk about the history of this TestCafe application. This was first introduced in 2013. Back then it is a commercial tool. It's not open source at that time. And then in 2016, they launched another version of this TestCafe with free and open source, but it's still a commercial tool. But in 2018, the TestCafe Studio and TestCafe, two different versions have been introduced. So the TestCafe Studio is a commercial product, and you have to purchase license for using it. And there are many pricing plans as well. But the TestCafe is open source automation tool that can be used by any person who can write codings. So today, from this presentation, I'm going to talk about only TestCafe. So first, we'll discuss about the differences between TestCafe and TestCafe Studio. So the TestCafe Studio can visually record test scenarios like Selenium IDE we used to use. And also this TestCafe Studio create stable tests with no manual timeouts, because once you record the test cases, they grab all the cookies, all the browser cookies, all the credentials, and all other things that needs to run the test. And also this TestCafe Studio is licensed, as I mentioned before, and you have to purchase. And there are many plans you can go with, and the minimum plan is this 249.99 per year one. And TestCafe is for software engineers who can convert test cases into scripts. So that's free and open source. And then we'll talk about why TestCafe is essential and why I chose this topic for this tech talk session. Because this TestCafe tool, we can use the JavaScript and TypeScript as well, because every person who studies IT, computer science, or software engineering, the basic JavaScript knowledge, everyone has that basic JavaScript knowledge. So that's a useful tip, and also it's very useful to use this TestCafe tool as well. And then the great browser support, including Internet Explorer 11. Many applications like test automation applications like Cypress and Selenium, they have this difficulty of automating applications in Internet Explorer. There are plugins and browser tools for Selenium, but in Cypress, they don't provide this Internet Explorer thing. The reason that I'm talking about this Internet Explorer supportability is because most of the high security environments like banks and the similar environments, they do not provide their employees or staff members to install any other third-party softwares like Chrome, Firefox, and any other third-party software to their systems. So, and also the systems that have operating systems like Windows 8, Windows 7, they comes with this Internet Explorer as the default browser. So there is no any possibility to install such other browsers in high security environments. So they have to deal with using the web applications with Internet Explorer. So they, and also we as QA engineers and developers, we have to develop our web applications support for this Internet Explorer browsers as well. So that's a great advantage, that if we can do our end-to-end testing using TestCafe, so that problem is overcome. And also the mobile browser supportability also included in TestCafe, because Selenium and Cypress, they do not provide mobile browser automation. So here at TestCafe, they provide mobile browser automation. And also, if we have a mobile device which is connected to the same Wi-Fi or the internet connection that our machine or the test code is running environment, so we can transfer our mobile browser test automation scripts to our mobile as well. So that's one of the advantage of using TestCafe. And this legendary weights like automatic weights, and this is implemented in Cypress as well, but the automatic weights are not available in Selenium. So this is one of the advantage of using TestCafe. And we can mock up the HTTP requests, and this is the inbuilt functionality in TestCafe. And also there's a debug mode and an informative console error description as well. So you can easily find out the issues that are related to the test scripts. And also this is very user friendly, and integration with CI pipeline is also very easy when it compares to Selenium. So these are the reasons that why I used to do the tech talk using TestCafe. So the next slide is about the comparison between TestCafe with Selenium. Here, most of the things that I have previously explained as well. So just to go through this, in Selenium, it's an open source automation tool, and it's widely used to automate web applications and Node. And this TestCafe is a Node.js end-to-end automation tool. This is also used to automate the web applications. And Selenium has rich interfaces and also so many external plugins when it comes to reportings, browser plugins, and so many things. But TestCafe do not have those kind of external plugins, but they do have internal inbuilt plugins in the environment, like browsers and reports as well. So in the Selenium, there's a high community support. For TestCafe, still there's less community support when it comes to development. And the setting up of the Selenium environment is really bit challenging, because you need to install several other plugins to support with Selenium. And setting up a TestCafe is really easy. You have to just give the npm command and install it at once. And the second and the last thing is, Selenium has multiple language support. So you can use from Java, C#, Ruby, likewise so many languages you can use to write scripts. But in TestCafe, you have only the opportunity to write with JavaScript and TypeScript only. So let's first get an idea about those three architectures. First, I'll go with the Selenium one. So the Selenium architecture, as you can see, the Selenium WebDriver API enables the interaction between browsers and browser drivers. So usually using Selenium core, you have to use a language binding like C#, Java, Ruby. So using JSON via protocol, you need to communicate with the browser driver. So then the browser driver in the sense Chrome driver, Gecko driver for Firefox likewise. So those are external plugins. So through that plugins, you can pass these calls for the test script commands to physical browsers using HTTP and HTTPS servers. So here each browser has a specific browser driver, and the browser driver interacts with its respective browser as well. So this is the basic idea how the Selenium architecture works. And also this is really when these scripts are running, it's taking much time to run these scripts as well, because we have to communicate through different protocols and different servers to actually get an output. So Then I'll discuss the Cypress architecture. So here in the Cypress, Cypress is sitting on the browser itself, not like Selenium. So the web servers and Node.js proxy servers all are in the browser. So the Node server and the Cypress interacts constantly and adjust and execute the actions. So here from the Node.js proxy server, you can pass the HTTP requests to the physical browser. So the Cypress architecture mainly relies on the browser. So it's really quick and really efficient rather than Selenium. And then I'll talk about the TestCafe architecture. Here, the TestCafe and the Cypress look similar, but there are few differences, like URL wrapping proxy and manage cookies, managing headers. There are a few differences, but this is somewhat advanced than Cypress because this is a hybrid approach, and the TestCafe tests combine advantages of browser and scripts as well. So the test code uses compact API. So there's a TestCafe API. So I'll explain that as well. So it's a really hybrid system of doing test automation. And this is really faster than Cypress as well. So then I compare the TestCafe framework with Cypress. So here, both these tools are open source, and both these tools have a paid version as well. And Cypress is rich and also have external plugins, but TestCafe does not require any external plugins because it has inbuilt plugins for almost all the functions. And Cypress easy to install. TestCafe also the same. It's really easy to install. And then Cypress does not have multiple browser support because when it comes to Cypress, it previously supported only Chrome browser, but now they have released a Firefox beta version and Edge driver support with Cypress. But in the TestCafe, you can run your web tests in almost all the browsers, including Internet Explorer as well. And when it comes to reporting, Cypress has to use external reporting plugins like Mocha Awesome. But in TestCafe, so almost all the reporting capabilities are inbuilt, but there's a small disadvantage there because there is no any interactive report functionality in TestCafe. You can have NUnit reports, XUnit reports, and JSON reports as well, but almost all of them are command line reports. And also in the Cypress, there's a huge community support and a huge boom for Cypress in the automation world. But in TestCafe, it's came a little bit recently, and also there's a less community support. But in future, it might have a good community support as well. So then I'll talk about the TestCafe features. So as I told you, TestCafe has so many inbuilt features. So it's really independent from almost all of the plugins that used by Cypress and Selenium. So here, the assertion libraries. Here, the assertion libraries are inbuilt, and also you can use child libraries as well for assertions. And then it comes to authentication process. So TestCafe provides user role mechanism. So here the user role mechanism in the sense if any application has different types of authentications and user roles. So likewise, as an example, admin user, a normal user, and a restricted user. So those kind of test scenarios can be covered using this authentication mechanism. And this is also inbuilt feature that TestCafe provides. And then it comes to synchronous functions. So here TestCafe intelligently handles synchronous and asynchronous functions as well. So here the timeouts and waits are handled by TestCafe intelligently. And when it comes to the report functionality, almost all the reports are inbuilt, and you can use this report functionality for your applications. And for data-driven testing, you can use JSON files, XML files, CSV, and other Excel files to automate test scripts using data-driven feature. So the next cool feature about this TestCafe is support for Internet Explorer browser. And then there's inbuilt debug mode like Cypress for TestCafe. So you can really easily identify the errors and other some sort of missing commands using this debug code. And also the main cool feature about this TestCafe is you can run your scripts in mobile browsers as well. So if you develop a web application and you need to test it in mobile devices, you can use the same web application scripts that you have written in TestCafe and run them on mobile browsers as well. So you can do that in TestCafe. So let's get hands-on experience on TestCafe. So to install TestCafe, it's really easy. You just need to install Node.js to your machine and set up it, and then use this npm command, npm install hyphen -g TestCafe. So you can get installed this TestCafe and all other node modules relevant to this. So after you install this, you can run a sample test. So that once you install the framework, there's a sample test. You can just run it and see. So you can use the command TestCafe, and that's the TestCafe command. Then you have to select the browser type. So here I have used Chrome. So you can use IE for Internet Explorer, Edge for Microsoft Edge, and then you have to give the test path and the file name. So here I have just given the file name. So once you give this and enter, you can run TestCafe scripts in your setup. So before that, I'll show you the TestCafe framework. This is a sample framework, and I just want to give you some idea about the sections in the TestCafe framework. So here in TestCafe, you can see fixtures, test hooks, test functions, and test actions similar to Cypress as well. But if you are coming from a different testing environment like the Selenium and WebDrive IO, so this fixture thing and the fixture thing is might not familiar for you. So here the fixtures fixture in the sense this part, and the test hooks are before each, after each, before and after. So those are the test hooks, and the test function is this async t. T means the test controller. So I'll explain you all these things in next slides. So these are the main four things that you have to remember when you write scripts in TestCafe framework. So in these actions, you can the test actions like click, double click, drop, selecting drop downs, select functions. So those are the test actions that is used. So let's understand about the TestCafe framework. So as I mentioned before, the fixtures, usually fixtures sits on the top of every test case that we write in TestCafe. So in the TestCafe test file, if anything starts from fixture and giving a fixture name, so it's where you can easily identify the fixture. And this fixture is used to consider as the parent of a group of tests. So you can group these test cases while you are writing using these kind of fixtures. And also one thing that you have to remember about the test data. So there is, if we declare a fixture, so there is a thing that you need to remember. Inside that fixture, the data and other metadata are common to every test case, but it's if you declare another fixture, so you can't access the previous data from on a different set of fixtures. So that's you need to keep in mind. And then about the TestCafe framework, the test functions. So once you declare the fixtures, and if there are any test hooks you need to define, you define like before, after each, and then it comes to the test function. So here the test functions you can declare like using the keyword test, and within you have to give the test case name or test function name, and then you have to declare the test controller object. So this test controller object we can declare like async t. So from this test control object you can access all the API calls from the TestCafe that I previously mentioned. So this TestCafe API has click functions like click, drag and drop functionality, and also drop down selection. These kind of things can be accessed through this test control. And then and one of the main thing that you have to remember, you can access almost all the inbuilt TestCafe methods from this test control as well. Then to give you an idea, so once you declare the fixtures, test hooks, and other test functions, so you have to now identify elements from a web page. So to identify any web elements and to observe the page states, so you have to use this TestCafe element, this TestCafe method called selector. So this selector method is inbuilt function of TestCafe, so you have to import it. So you have to, in this sample picture I have shown you how to import the TestCafe selector. And also once you import it, you can access selectors with you can access them using IDs, CSS selectors, and most of the cases better to use CSS selectors. because it's easily captured from third-party tools in the Chrome browser or any other browser that you are using to automate. And if the result of the select is not an individual node, you can use other helper methods to deep dive into the selector. Like if there is a drop down, so first you have to click the drop down icon, and then there is a list that going to be loaded, so you have to access that inside list. So there's an inner list. So likewise, you can deep dive inside nodes as well. It's this feature is similar to Cypress as well. So there's a similarity here. And then I'll talk about TestCafe assertions. As I mentioned before, here the TestCafe they have inbuilt their assertion library. So you don't need to add external plugins or libraries like Chai for TestCafe. So here TestCafe has provided their own assertion library to verify the status of elements and element presence in the web page. So this list is one few examples of assertions. So you can use deep equal, is greater than function, less than. There are so many assertions. So when doing the demonstration, I'll show you a few of them. And then to declare assertions, you can use this expect keyword. So you have to use this await expression because we use this as await expression to functions like async executions, like until the promise is settled, we have to wait. So likewise, we have to use this one, and then we have to use this controller, and then to get this expect. So likewise, you can use TestCafe assertions. So let's move to the demonstration. I'll end the slideshow and then show you the code. So here you can see the TestCafe framework. And here, once you install the TestCafe, you get this node modules and this package JSON. Before installing TestCafe, make sure to install the package JSON. So once you create your package JSON, install TestCafe, and then you can start writing TestCafe scripts. So I'll one by one I'll explain how you can write these scripts. So here, as I mentioned before, you have to get the.
Sorry, Kavindra, can you increase the font, please? Or
okay.
Control mouse wheel.
It's not increased.
I think you can do Control plus.
Control plus.
Is it now? Okay.
Yes, that's better.
Okay. So here I just have created a sample test file. So before start scripting, so you have to first import the selector library, because here in the TestCafe, this selector is the library that you can grab web elements from the web pages. So first make sure to insert this selector. and then you can start writing, creating fixtures, and then functions, test functions, and then you can do your assertions and make sure the test state is reached fetch. And also this is the basic structure. Other than this, test hooks and test functions, you can just create a simple applications like simple test scripts like this as well. So there are two ways that you can do the scripting. And if you are going with page object model, so make sure to create the fixtures, test hooks, test functions, and assertions. Very make them to use very seriously. If you are writing to get application testing very quickly and very fast, so just use the simple method. So I'll go with this standard method. So here, once you enter this fixture keyword, you have to give a name for the fixture. And then once you create this fixture, you can navigate to a URL using this .page method. So here, just give the URL. Then you can define your test hooks here. So here I have defined 4 test hooks before each, after, and after each. So here you can give your test setup and your database resets, speed of test running. So you can just give them before, inside this before test hook. If there is anything recurring, even recurring after every test, so you can give any functionalities like test speed, page load timeout likewise. So you can just mention them in this before section. And if you need to clean test data after all the test scripts after running, so you can just clean data. And if there's any data that you need, you can just create a test file as well. So if there's anything that runs after each and every test, so you can mention that functionality inside this test hook. So that's about the test hooks. And then when it comes to writing test cases, you can mention this test keyword and then create a test case by giving a name. So, and then you have to give this async keyword, and you have to mention the test controller using key. So this is the test controller. So this test controller, if you mention this, so then only you can access to TestCafe API. So once you declare this test controller, you can start writing normal test scripts like getting the selector, and you can create a variable name and put and assign that selector to this variable name. So likewise, you can grab the elements, and then you can pass any things like writing words in a text field likewise. So you can pass elements like test type t.type text. So here t is the test controller. Then this is the TestCafe API, one of the method. So here you can input the name inside this name input. So likewise, this is basic test scripting. So likewise, you can write codes inside this, and this is for click the submit button. So once you identify the selector for this submit button. So you can just pass it and click submit button. So once you click this button, if the login is success or any failure, so you can get this, or any assertion you can write. So let's run this script. So then you guys can get the clear idea. So to run this, so I have created few run commands here. To run this, I'll first go with this test, basic test. So here I'm using the Chrome browser, and then I'm going to run the basic test.js file. So here to run test cafe script, so you have to mention npm run and give this script name. So it's loading. So you can see the Chrome version and all other information about the operating system. Now it identifies the elementary type and click the submit button. So it has the thank you keyword there. So I have written assertion there. Assertion to capture my name. So let's see the console. So you can see the version and operating system and the first test. It's fast. So this is the basic way of running the TestCafe commands. And I'm going to show you now the mobile browser compatibility test. So here I'm going to run the same basic test script in the mobile ratio. So here I use the mobile Chrome browser, use the Chrome browser, and the emulation device as iPhone X. So it automatically capture the iPhone X size and run the test script. So let's run and see. See that. And it automatically adjusts its size to that phone size. So now it's running. So likewise, you can run devices like iPhone X or Android devices, any kind of thing. So this is about test execution. And then when it comes to report, I'll show you report functionality as well. So here, let's run this one. So I'm running the same script in different test functionalities. So here I'm running the command that I gave was to generate a report list. Okay. So this is the report feature. So you can get a console report from this test command. Actually, it ran my next test case. So anyhow, you can get an idea that there are inbuilt report functionalities in TestCafe. So that's about it, and I'll show you the Internet Explorer thing as well. So now the test is running on Explorer. Okay, so it's successfully filled. So these are the scenarios that I wanted to show you in the demonstration. So let's move to the presentation. Okay, so hope you guys got idea about the TestCafe demonstration and how it works. So here we talk about the advantages of TestCafe. So TestCafe is really fast, and it's very fast in CI CD pipelines rather than Cypress and Selenium. And because it runs inside a browser as fast as the browser in the web application. So and also it's simple and cross-browser support, because TestCafe only launch browsers and it can automate browsers on desktop or mobile as well. There's a plus point in that one, and it's very stable to execute, because the test is this TestCafe scripts are running inside browsers, so it's very stable, and there is very less network latency when it compares to WebDriver in Selenium. And the disadvantages of this TestCafe is browsers executed in TestCafe are not aware about any test mode. And also, if there are some edge case scenarios like debugging issues and some web page parsing kind of thing happen, like injection, so there's a disadvantage. And we don't have browser control, and then less community support for TestCafe. That's one of the disadvantage. And some simulated events like double click are simulated with JavaScript, and the kind of native events are happening. And also there's a bit instability of that as well. I think we have come to the end of the presentation, and do you guys have any questions about TestCafe or any